Hello everyone, it's Molly Riversea, and today I will be going to my very first jumping lesson with my new inventor Monty. This will mark our first outing together, other than some low-key hacks out we've done. We'll be hauling out to the Jorvik stables to take a group lesson. So here we go, we're cutting right to the chase. I got his tack packed up. Monty hadn't been turned out on this particular morning because it was an early lesson, so straight away I took him to the trailer. He loaded like a dream, no fuss at all, and was very quiet all the way up to the stables, which is quite a long drive. We have made it here to the bustling Jorvik stables where the equestrian festival is currently getting set up, and before I get ready for our lesson, I really just want to take a quick peek around. I'm a little early and they have so many cute pop-ups here, so I figure why not treat myself? If you know me, matchy is my weakness, and I did get a super cute set for Monty and I that we will be trying today, and then I also got some feed and other goodies. I will make sure to give you guys a little haul once I get back from the lesson. Did have a quick outfit change because I really wanted to wear the stuff I got. So here's my outfit of the day. So I'm wearing these black tall boots and a nice light base layer with a purple vest because the wind was kind of picking up, and some black gloves, and of course my helmet because, you know, safety. And a quick shout out to Monty for putting up with my shopping addiction. So I got the very patiently impatient boy unloaded, gave him a little groom, nothing too big because of course we were a little late at this point. I blame it completely on the equestrian festival for sucking me in. Anyways, Georgia was already tacked up and ready to go, just very kindly waiting on me, so thank you Georgia for also putting up with me because of course I have to be fashionably late. Anywho, I have been noticing Monty manages to keep himself pretty clean, which I'm thankful for, but of course today, when we actually have somewhere to be, he had some very obvious poo stains. I swear it's like he tried to roll on the grossest areas and just managed to get it where his white patches are, and of course tacked him up with a super cute pinky purple saddle pad that matches my top, so we did have a little matchiness going on. I think this color pops on him really nicely. Then I put his jumping boots on and of course his bridle. Moments later I was finally ready, so we walked them down to the arena and I did a couple laps walking just so he could relax, let out that breath so I could tighten his girth fully and our saddle wouldn't be slippy because obviously don't want any saddle flipping under for our first proper jumping session. Our lesson today would be with Charity Riverrock, who is a well-known name around the show jumping circuit in Jorvik. She has such a lovely way with words and explaining things, so I've been really loving working with her as my instructor. Also, can we just appreciate the fact that Georgia and I had the same matchy set from the festival? Anyways, after a nice walk warm-up, she started us off doing some flat work, and before that, the boys had to have a quick snuggle with each other while Charity was telling us kind of the plan for today. It was incredibly endearing, but of course, we had to get back to work. We started the flat work part of our ride today with some slow trot just to get him back thinking and using his body a little bit more. He was carrying himself really nicely, felt very forward and soft also. I did some extending and collecting because it's good for me to do that sort of thing since I'm still learning what sort of buttons he has. And we also did some transitions. He was coming off my leg really nicely and wasn't rushing off in the canter, so right away he got into like a nice smooth rhythm in our canter. For our flat work, she also had us doing some bending and flexing exercises to help with balance and suppleness. One bending exercise we did is the shoulder in, where I basically asked Monty to move his shoulders slightly inwards while kind of maintaining a straight line, and this really helps engage his hind end, which overall helps collection. Once the ponies were feeling nice and warm and we kind of set them up for success for the rest of our ride, we moved on to some pole work. Charity had set up this wild looking grid in quite the intricate pattern. This is really good for rhythm and balance, so I had a little bit of a trot through the poles and I just tried to keep a nice steady pace. However, when I first went through this exercise, we kind of jigged over the poles and he had a little bit of jumpiness over them. So we really got him collected up, and then as we went through the motions, we got a bit more forward movement. His brain was very much so in jump mode. We just had to go through it several times to get him maintaining that even rhythm, but we got there. Georgia also had a go at it, and Peter went over these so nice and calm, cool, collected. Not only does Peter have his looks, but he also has a brain. He is very well-rounded. We also had to go with these other poles just to get them really picking up their feet and using themselves and carrying themselves really nicely. And okay, Peter, take our breath away. He picks up his feet so nicely. After that, we regrouped and Charity set up a bit of a challenge for us. You know it's gonna get good when your trainer brings out the bounce jumps. Bounce jumps are just placed really close together, so the horse has to jump one immediately after the other without any strides in between. It's a really good test of agility, coordination, and our ability to maintain a steady pace and balance. Our first time going through it, it did not go as planned. We had a little bit of a stumble. I'm not used to such a powerhouse of a horse. You know, I'm still getting used to Monty, and Monty is still getting used to me, so it's gonna take some time to figure each other out. The next time through it, we had just the right amount of impulsion without absolutely bombing off, and he went through really nice and straight. So after we nailed a couple more goes of the bounce jumps, Charity had set up 2 verticals for us to jump, and so we really worked on our lines and approaches to the jumps. We didn't do anything too crazy, just worked on not really rushing up to the fences. We had a little knock the first time around just because we didn't have quite enough impulsion, but we got there and eventually had some really lovely jumps over it. And this time around, he was a very good boy coming up to it, not sulking, but also not rushing and just being that perfect amount of forward. He's quite a bold horse, but also doesn't get too hot or start to completely take over, which is something I really appreciate in him. While we worked on that, Georgia also had a little go of these cross rails, and Peter has such a cute jump on him, look at that. Then we took it up a notch, and Charity had us move on to try this double with a vertical and an oxer. Charity is more ambitious than I would be, to say the least, because I was a bit intimidated by the height of these fences. So I was voluntold to go first, and Monty and I really focused on getting those proper strides in between. He has really long floaty strides, which I'm not quite adjusted to yet. I kept kind of pulling him back, which caused us to have a few chip-ins. I kept having to remind myself like I'm not riding my little Welsh pony Belle because she's so short-strided. There's so much more forgiveness there when I don't see a stride, because when she chips in, it's not quite as dramatic and we can kind of recover from that. But with Monty, that is not the case. I do have to be on my A game with him, but the second time through, I got a little braver. We fit in a really lovely single stride. Our straightness could have been improved, but you know, one thing at a time, and I was just really happy with how we went. Georgia also had a couple goes at it as well, and I think they were lacking impulsion a little bit here, so she decided to go ahead and recircle, but they got it together and got a little bit more energy, and they ended up taking these jumps on really beautifully. Monty's kind of a horse where the longer you work him, the more adrenaline he gets, so over these next few, he was getting a bit ahead of himself, rushing, and made things look a bit sloppy. So instead of working him over and over again until he calmed down, which, you know, hardly ever works, I went ahead, did some circles just to get him thinking a bit. We also did some leg yields, which really helped him get in a good headspace and relaxed, and just get him listening to my leg again. And after that breather, we went ahead, popped over them again to see how he was going. This time around, he was feeling a lot better. I will say he did kind of pop me out of the saddle. Like I said, he is an absolute powerhouse, but I managed to hold myself up. I think he's just really excited to be jumping, so he was getting pretty exuberant with these combinations. He collected pretty nicely, so I will take it. Just as Georgia was beginning her go through, the weather started to turn and she had to stop halfway through because Peter started acting pretty spooky. At first the wind was picking up and then it started to rain, despite just moments before having this beautiful spring weather. But this is Jorvik and the weather can be pretty volatile, so unfortunately we did have to cut the lesson short because the arena was starting to get mucky and sloshy and the horses were getting a bit spicy, which is why I think he was having a little bit of fun after the last jump round and starting to kind of rush. Monty has a very good brain on him, but even he could not stand the weather and we were all becoming a bit too damp and a bit too cold, so for our sake and the horses' sake, we did a short hand walk on the ground for a cool down and then got the horses untacked at the barn and headed home. Back at the SEC, I bathed Monty, gave him a little brush off because he did have some sweat marks and his legs were honestly a mucky mess thanks to the puddle that had become the arena. And I then gave Monty a little thank you snack for working so hard for me and of course some pats. And in typical Monty fashion, he decided to snag all the treats from me because according to him, I had not given him enough. And as promised, here's a little haul for you all. So at the Nectar booth, I got some ulcer guard because Monty has struggled with ulcers in the past. His old owners were very transparent about that, which does make his diet a little more elaborate, but of course he's worth it. And then I got a couple bags of the performance horse feed because that's what Buggy and Monty are on. And then beet pulp shreds, as well as some other odds and ends like salt lick, hoof polish, fly repellent before the flies start wreaking absolute havoc on us this summer, and of course treats, which is, according to my horses, the most important thing. Anyways, I did decide to keep Monty in for the rest of the day because of the torrential downpour that is outside right now. Anyways, I'm just really happy with where we ended off during our lesson. It's been such a blast figuring out Monty, and I really feel like we're just beginning to click with each other. It just is really easy to get along with this horse since he's got such a nice work ethic and head on him. I hope you all enjoyed, and make sure to subscribe because we do have our first show coming up here next month, which I can hardly believe I'm saying, so stay tuned for that. Have an amazing day, everyone. Say bye, Monty. Look at that, right on cue.
With you, I wanna stay with you.